Ramesses the Great, Egypt's most powerful ruler, should have been buried with unimaginable wealth. But today, not a single piece of his royal treasure has ever been found. So what happened? Were they stolen, hidden, or deliberately erased from history? In this video, we uncover the missing pieces of a 3,000-year-old puzzle that Egyptologists still can't solve. Ramesses II, warrior king, builder of empires, and the god on earth of ancient Egypt. His monuments dominate the desert, his legacy echoes through time, but his tomb, almost completely empty. No golden mask, no ceremonial weapons, no jeweled necklaces, no treasure of any kind for the greatest pharaoh in history. This makes no sense. Today, we step deep into the Valley of the Kings to investigate the truth behind the mystery of Ramesses' missing tomb treasures. The story begins with a silence that should never have existed. When explorers and archaeologists finally stepped into what remained of Ramesses II's burial site, they expected a world of gold, a chamber blazing with the wealth of a king who ruled longer than any other pharaoh in Egyptian history. Ramesses the Great wasn't just a ruler. He was a symbol of absolute power, a living god, a figure so monumental that his statues still tower over deserts, riverbanks, and temples thousands of years later. And yet, the most shocking part of his legacy is not what he left behind, but what wasn't found at all. For a pharaoh of such unmatched power, the expectations were grand. Ancient Egyptian tradition demanded that kings be buried with a treasury fit for eternity: golden masks, jeweled amulets, sacred weapons, ritual staffs, chests of precious oils, canopic containers shaped from pure alabaster, and entire collections of ornaments that symbolized their divine status. These weren't just decorations, they were cosmic tools, placed beside the king to help him ascend to the afterlife and rule forever in the presence of the gods. Every artifact carried spiritual weight. Every object was chosen with purpose. But when Ramesses' I's remains were finally uncovered, the world was shocked. Not a single piece of his royal treasure was there. His coffin was not made of gold, but of simple, reworked wood, borrowed, repurposed, and stripped of any luxury. His mummy contained no golden rings, no amulets, no necklaces, none of the elaborate burial adornments that other pharaohs were wrapped with. The most powerful king Egypt ever produced seemed to have been buried with almost nothing. How could this be? The disappearance of Ramesses' tomb treasures became one of the most haunting mysteries of Egyptology. Every possibility leads to more questions. Did the treasures vanish thousands of years ago? Were they stolen before archaeologists ever entered the valley? Or was there something more deliberate, more strategic behind their absence, something carried out by the Egyptians themselves? Even the layout of Ramesses' tomb raises suspicion. His original burial site, known as KV7, sits in one of the most dangerous parts of the Valley of the Kings, prone to flooding and structural collapse. When explorers entered its ruins, much of it had already fallen apart. Tunnels had caved in. Chambers were filled with debris. Passageways were lost in darkness and dust. A tomb once meant to glorify the king for eternity was instead found mutilated by nature and time. If treasure had once filled these chambers, could violent floods have ripped them out and buried them deep beneath layers of sediment? Could priceless golden artifacts still lie somewhere under thousands of tons of collapsed rock, unreachable and unseen? Or is the destruction merely a distraction from an even deeper truth? Ancient documents reveal that tomb robbing wasn't rare, it was rampant. In periods of famine or political collapse, royal tombs became targets for desperate thieves who tunneled through walls in the dead of night, hoping to find gold that would feed their families. Some records even describe investigations and confessions carried out by Egyptian authorities, proving that tomb robbery existed not only among common criminals, but sometimes even among those entrusted to protect the royal hillside. If the tomb of Ramesses was breached early in history, the treasures could have been melted down, traded, or lost long before modern archaeologists ever came close to the site. Yet even this explanation feels incomplete, because the level of nothingness found with Ramesses is extreme. Not even small items survived, no beads, no metal fragments. No broken remnants of treasure. It was as if someone had not merely robbed the tomb, but cleansed it. The disappearance of Ramesses' treasures becomes even more mysterious when we look at what happened to his body after death. Unlike most pharaohs, Ramesses II did not rest peacefully in a single tomb. Instead, his remains were moved, rewrapped, relocated, and hidden multiple times over the course of centuries. And every time his burial was disturbed, every time priests shifted his resting place, new uncertainties were created about what was removed, what was preserved, and what disappeared in the process. This wasn't just a burial. It was a rescue operation unfolding across generations, and the details of that operation may hold the key to understanding where his treasures went. When Ramesses II died, his body was originally placed inside his grand tomb, KV7, in the Valley of the Kings, but Egypt was entering a dangerous period. The stability of the new kingdom was deteriorating, and tomb robbers were becoming increasingly bold. Royal resting places, filled with unimaginable wealth, were being targeted relentlessly. Priests knew that if the tombs were not protected, even the greatest kings would be violated. So they began a secret mission that would change the fate of Egypt's royal mummies forever. These priests, particularly those of the 21st dynasty, took it upon themselves to physically remove the kings from their original burial chambers. They opened tombs, examined mummies, inspected treasures, recorded what remained, and then secretly transferred the bodies to new hiding places. It was an unprecedented act. Imagine priests entering the pitch-black corridors of ancient tombs, whispering prayers as they lifted the bodies of legendary kings and carried them through the valley under the cover of night. Their goal was not to disrespect the rulers, but to save them from being lost entirely. Ramesses II was moved more than once. His first tomb became unsafe. His remains were shifted to a second location, then eventually transported to a massive hidden mummy cache at Deir el-Bahari. The cache, filled with over 40 royal mummies, was intentionally sealed away in the cliffs, far from the eyes of thieves. But with every move, every unwrapping and rewrapping, every relocation, records became less clear. Items went missing, ritual objects were removed. Amulets disappeared. Priests often stripped mummies of valuables simply to rewrap them more efficiently or to hide them in smaller spaces. And in some cases, treasures might have been redirected into state control, melted down for emergency resources during Egypt's political collapse. This wasn't a single event, it was a chain reaction, a process that spanned decades, a process that created gaps, fractures, and confusion in the historical record. When Ramesses II was finally discovered in the Deir el-Bahari cache thousands of years later, his body was wrapped differently from how it should have been. The linen belonged to a later period, and his mummy had no jewelry whatsoever, no amulets. No gold, no adornments. This raised an unsettling question. Were these items removed by tomb robbers? Or by the very priests who claimed to be protecting him? There is a moment in the story of Ramesses' missing treasures where everything becomes uncertain, a moment where two completely different possibilities clash, one rooted in crime, the other rooted in state authority. And the more you study the evidence, the harder it becomes to tell which of the two forces played a greater role in stripping the greatest pharaoh in Egyptian history of the wealth meant to guide him into eternity. The truth might lie somewhere between desperate thieves and the very officials who were supposed to protect the royal dead. To understand this mystery, we need to dive back into ancient Egypt's turbulent late New Kingdom, a time when the power of the pharaohs was fading, the economy was collapsing, and hunger drove people to unthinkable acts. Tomb robbery wasn't a rare crime, it was widespread. Entire teams of thieves worked together, digging tunnels through walls that were meant to be impenetrable. They moved silently by torchlight, chipping away at limestone, listening for hollow chambers that signaled the presence of a tomb. When they found one, they broke in and ripped open coffins without hesitation. And these weren't amateurs. Records from the Abbot Papyrus and other investigation documents show that tomb robbers were often highly skilled. Some even had inside knowledge because they were once workers who helped build these tombs. They understood the architecture, the secret chambers, the decoy corridors. When famine grew worse, some of these former laborers turned to robbery as their only means of survival. The papyri even include shocking confessions. Thieves admitting they hacked through walls, seized gold, smashed amulets, stripped mummies of jewelry, and melted treasures to avoid being recognized. These documents reveal an organized underworld of looters who viewed the Valley of the Kings not as a sacred resting place, but as a vault filled with untold wealth. But then the story becomes more complicated, because while thieves were tunneling through tomb walls, something equally dramatic was happening above ground. They entered tomb after tomb, inspecting what remained, and in some cases, removing the treasures themselves. Their goal was not to steal, but to preserve, yet the question remains, what happened to the items they removed? A kingdom could not wage war, pay soldiers, or maintain temples without precious metal. During times of crisis, even the most sacred objects were sometimes melted down to sustain the state. Thieves could have broken in early, stealing what they could before fleeing into the night. Then, decades later, priests may have entered to salvage the remaining items before relocating the mummy. This two-stage removal would explain why there isn't even a trace of gold left, no fragments, no beads, no partial remains of what was once placed inside the tomb. What makes this theory even more compelling is the state of Ramesses' mummy. When he was discovered, every precious item was missing. No rings, no necklaces, no protective charms. No burial ornaments. This goes far beyond typical tomb robbery, because even the most destructive thieves usually leave behind scraps, fragments, or broken pieces. But in Ramesses' case, it's as if someone carefully removed everything with precision, wrapped him again, and then transported him with intention. That level of thoroughness hints at a controlled process, not a chaotic plundering in the dark. The mystery deepens when we realize that written records from the priests never mention what treasures were found or removed during their rescue missions. They mention repairs to mummies, rewrapping procedures, and new linen layers, but not the sacred objects they encountered along the way. Silence fills the gaps where answers should be, and in those gaps, the fate of the Pharaoh's treasures remains hidden, caught somewhere between ancient criminals and the hands of officials who believed they were protecting Egypt's last line of royal dignity. The mystery of Ramesses' missing treasures takes a dramatic turn when we follow the journey of his body to the place where it was finally discovered, a hidden chamber tucked deep within the cliffs of Deir el-Bahari. But while it revealed the mummy of Ramesses the Great himself, it also raised even more questions about what happened to the treasures that once surrounded him. When archaeologists opened the cache in 1881, they found over 40 royal mummies packed tightly together in a long vertical shaft and a small chamber carved into the rock. Pharaohs from different dynasties lay side by side, kings, queens, princes, all stripped of the wealth they would have been buried with. It was immediately clear that this was not a tomb. It was a hiding place. A vault created during a crisis, a last resort in a time when Egypt was fighting desperately to protect its sacred dead. Among the piles of linen-wrapped kings was Ramesses II, the most powerful of them all. But he was missing everything he should have carried into the afterlife. His wrappings were new, from a later dynasty. The seals on his linen were from priests who lived centuries after his death, and the body itself showed signs of having been unwrapped, inspected, and rewrapped multiple times. It was as if he had been handled like a precious artifact, protected, preserved, yet stripped of every object meant to accompany him to the world beyond. This discovery tells us something extremely important. Ramesses did not travel from his original tomb to the cache untouched. Someone, whether priests or others, made conscious decisions about what to take with him and what to leave behind. And the absence of any royal treasures in the cache is a clue that the removal of his burial riches may have been part of that process. The mummy cache also revealed another surprising detail. Alongside the bodies were wooden boxes filled with fragments of coffins, pieces of wrappings, and scraps of objects from various tombs. But none of these belonged to Ramesses II. His coffin fragments were few, and even the wooden coffin he rested in was not originally made for him. It had been repurposed, reinscribed, and adapted during his relocation. This means his original coffin, likely lavish and richly decorated, had been replaced long before he reached the cache. And with it, the treasures that accompanied him would have been removed as well. The cache also provides insights through the priestly inscriptions found on the mummies. These short notes, written in black or red ink, describe the rewrapping, repairing, and transferring of bodies. They mention dates, names of priests, and the condition of the mummies. Yet again, the silence on treasures is striking. Not a single note references jewelry, amulets, masks, or gold. It is as if these items had already vanished long before the priests performed their restorations. Or perhaps the priests themselves deliberately omitted any mention of the sacred objects they handled, choosing to record only the physical treatment of the bodies while avoiding details that might incriminate or endanger them. What makes the cache even more important to the mystery is the pattern seen among the other kings. Every royal mummy found there was stripped of treasures, every king was rewrapped. Every coffin seemed altered or replaced. This wasn't an isolated case, this was a coordinated, systematic effort. And if all the kings arrived without their treasures, then the disappearance of Ramesses' wealth was not random. It was part of a larger operation, a state-level response to chaos, theft, and the collapse of Egypt's security. The cache shows us that the priests acted with urgency, moving the mummies quickly to protect them from robbers. But in that hurried process, decisions were made, decisions that changed the fate of countless treasures, including Ramesses. The priests might have believed that preserving the bodies was more important than preserving the wealth. They may have taken the treasures for safekeeping, or they may have sent them into state storage, knowing that gold could sustain the kingdom during disaster. And so, while the royal mummy cache gave us the body of Ramesses the Great, it also revealed just how much of his original burial was removed, replaced, or lost during the complex and chaotic centuries that unfolded after his death. As the mystery of Ramesses' missing treasures deepens, modern science steps in, not with guesses, not with ancient rumors, but with hard evidence pulled from the mummy itself. And what researchers have uncovered through CT scans, forensic analysis, excavation notes, and newly re-examined records paints a picture far more complex than simple tomb robbery. Every new piece of data points to a truth that is more calculated, more deliberate, and more coordinated than anyone expected. When Ramesses II's mummy was first unwrapped by Egyptologists in the late 19th century, observers noticed something strange almost immediately. Unlike many other royal mummies, Ramesses had no jewelry embedded within his wrappings. No rings on his hands, no amulets placed between layers, no gold foil tucked inside the linen. Normally, a pharaoh, especially one of Ramesses' importance, would have been buried with dozens of protective charms placed across his body to aid him in the afterlife. But his body was bare, wrapped tightly, restored multiple times, but missing every object that was traditionally required for a king's eternal journey. At first, archaeologists assumed that tomb robbers had stripped the body long before the priests relocated it. But when modern CT scans were performed, the truth became more unsettling. The scans revealed not even microscopic traces of metal or mineral residue inside the wrappings. No broken bead fragments, no dust from crushed stones, no embedded particles of gold. If thieves had ripped jewels off his body, some remnants would have remained. Instead, it appeared that the removal was extremely precise, done carefully, systematically, without disturbing the delicate structure of the mummy. That level of care doesn't match the work of robbers hacking through wrappings in the dark. It suggests a controlled, professional operation likely conducted by priests or state officials who handled the mummy intentionally rather than violently. And the modern imaging technology exposes exactly that. The linen layers show signs of rewrapping, multiple resin applications, and careful reinforcement of damaged tissue. The mummy wasn't just unwrapped once, it was worked on repeatedly, as if passed through several hands over different generations. Then there are the excavation journals from the 1800s. Early archaeologists recorded that when they opened the Deir el-Bahari cache, many of the pharaohs' coffins showed marks of ancient inspections. Some had been opened deliberately. Others had new resin seals, meaning they were reclosed by official hands long after the kings were moved. Ramesses' coffin bore the name of a different king, indicating that his original, more luxurious sarcophagus had been replaced centuries earlier. Every layer of evidence points to the same conclusion. The treasures were removed before the king ever reached the mummy cache. Another key piece of modern evidence comes from analysis of the bandages themselves. Radiocarbon dating and textile studies show that the linen used to rewrap. Ramesses too came from different periods, some several hundred years after his original burial. This means the body was rewrapped during times of crisis, and valuable objects might have been taken during any of these moments. But the consistency of the removal suggests a method, not chaos. It implies that his amulets, jewelry, and golden artifacts were intentionally taken out before the priests prepared him for transfer. Even more intriguing are the inscriptions left by the priests. Many of these notes mention restoration, renewal, or repair, but they carefully avoid any reference to treasures. Not a single record states what was taken or where it was stored. The silence is glaring, almost purposeful. When modern scholars compare these notes with CT scan data, they find that the areas where protective amulets should traditionally sit across the chest, between the arms near the neck, are completely empty, with no signs they were ever present during the later stages of burial. And then comes the biggest clue of all, the condition of the mummy itself. Ramesses II's body is remarkably well preserved, but the absence of burial objects tells us that everything was removed before his final sealing. No damage from frantic thieves. No tearing consistent with robbery. Just clean removal, expert rewrapping, and silent transport into a hidden vault. Modern forensic science points to a conclusion that reshapes the entire mystery. The treasures didn't vanish through chaos or accident. They were intentionally taken, catalogued, and possibly redirected by ancient hands who believed they were serving a greater purpose. The mystery of Ramesses' missing tomb treasures reaches its most haunting point when we confront the truth that even after more than a century of excavations, countless academic studies, CT scans, papyrus translations, and re-examinations of every scrap of evidence, the fate of the greatest pharaoh's wealth remains unresolved. Not because we lack clues, on the contrary, we have more clues for Ramesses II than almost any other pharaoh, but because each clue leads to a different path, and none of those paths converge with certainty. Instead, they form a maze of possibilities, a puzzle with pieces scattered across time, buried under rock, or rewritten by priests who lived centuries after Ramesses took his final breath. What makes this mystery so gripping is not just the scale of the treasures we know must have existed, but the way every theory seems both completely possible and frustratingly incomplete. For example, the idea that tomb robbers stole everything sounds reasonable. Egypt was struggling. Famine was widespread, and royal tombs were easy targets during times of chaos. Yet the surgical removal of treasures from Ramesses' mummy Dosen to match the reckless violence of ancient thieves, robbers rarely worked cleanly. They ripped, smashed, broke, and left damage behind. But Ramesses' wrappings show none of that. His body was handled with care, the linen replaced properly, the resin applied with precision. It's as if someone removed the treasures with respect, not greed. Then there's the theory that Egyptian priests themselves removed the treasures. This explanation fits neatly with the political and economic crises of the era. As Egypt's power crumbled, temples and state offices were struggling to find resources. Gold from the tombs could keep the kingdom functioning. Priests may have believed they were saving Egypt, not looting it. And yet, if the treasures were taken by officials, why did they leave no inventory? Why are there no records of redistribution, no lists, no documentation of what was removed from Ramesses' tomb? Ancient Egypt was known for its meticulous record-keeping. Scribes documented everything from tax payments to temple repairs. The silence surrounding the missing treasures feels intentional, as though someone wanted those items to vanish without a trace. Another possibility is geological devastation. KV7, Ramesses' original tomb, stands in one of the most flood-prone areas of the Valley of the Kings. Some archaeologists believe violent flash floods may have swallowed the treasures, dragging them deeper into the mountain or burying them under layers of limestone and debris. But if floodwaters had carried the items away, at least fragments should have remained tiny pieces of gold, bits of precious stone, or broken artifacts. Yet none have ever been recovered. KV7 holds destruction, but not even a hint of treasure. Still, others believe the answer lies in architecture. KV7 remains partially unexplored due to structural instability. Massive sections of the tomb are inaccessible, filled with collapsed rock. Some experts argue that hidden chambers may still exist, sealed rooms untouched since the day Ramesses was buried. If such a chamber exists, it may still contain his long-lost wealth. But until the tomb can be safely excavated, that theory hangs in limbo, waiting for technology or new methods that can penetrate the dangerous layers of rubble. Then comes the possibility that the treasures were moved along with the body. When Ramesses was transferred from one tomb to another and ultimately to the Deir el-Bahari cache, perhaps the priests separated his treasures into different containers, storing them elsewhere for protection. But if that were true, those containers have never been found, and no document even hints at their existence. The cache held hundreds of items from various tombs, yet not a single object can be confidently connected to Ramesses II's original burial. Every line of investigation ends in a wall of uncertainty. The disappearance of the treasures doesn't follow a pattern seen with any other king. Other pharaohs lost items, yes, but Ramesses lost everything down to the smallest amulet. The totality of this disappearance is what makes this puzzle so enduring. It defies explanation, it refuses closure. It challenges archaeologists, historians, and scientists even today, because no single theory explains the complete absence of artifacts, the precision of removal, the lack of records, and the contradictory clues scattered across centuries. And so we are left with an enigma that grows deeper the more we uncover. Every new discovery reveals another gap. Every answer opens a door to more questions. Ramesses II ruled for 66 years, built monuments that defy time, fought wars that reshaped empires, and left a legacy that echoes across 3 millennia. Yet the story that should have been obvious, the fate of his tomb treasures, is the one that remains shrouded in the thickest veil of mystery. And so after journeying through the shattered tunnels of KV7, the hidden chambers of Deir el-Bahari, the Papyrus, records of ancient investigations, and the forensic clarity of modern science, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The disappearance of Ramesses the Great's tomb treasures is not a simple case of theft or loss or damage. It is a layered mystery woven through centuries of chaos, devotion, desperation, and deliberate action. Every generation that handled his body left its own imprint, its own decisions, its own secrets buried beneath layers of linen, stone, and silence. Robbers may have struck first, tearing into the tomb during Egypt's darkest years. Priests may have followed, removing sacred items to protect the king or to preserve the kingdom itself. Floods may have destroyed parts of the tomb, scattering clues into unreachable depths. And officials may have melted down the last of the gold to survive a dying empire. Each theory carries weight. Each one fits a piece of the puzzle. Yet none of them complete it. Even now, Ramesses II, one of the most powerful rulers the ancient world ever saw, stands at the center of a question we still cannot answer. His monuments rise unbroken across Egypt, his legacy carved into cliffs and temples, his name etched into history as a god-king, a builder, a conqueror. But the treasures meant to honor him in eternity remain missing, hidden in the fractures of time, perhaps lost forever, or perhaps still waiting to be found. Until the last unexplored chamber of KV7 is revealed, until every forgotten record is re-examined, until technology uncovers what human hands cannot reach, the mystery of Ramesses' missing tomb treasures will continue to haunt archaeologists, historians, and everyone drawn to the echoes of the ancient world. Some mysteries fade with time, but this one only grows larger, deeper, and more compelling with every new discovery. And somewhere beneath the sands of Thebes, beneath the weight of 3,000 years of history, the truth still rests in silence, waiting for the moment it finally steps back into the light.